6 and 1. There was a famine in the land, as bad as the famine during the time of Abraham, and Isaac went down to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, in Gerar. God appeared to him and said, "Don't go down to Egypt. Stay where I tell you. Stay here in this land, and I will be with you and bless you. I'm giving you and your children all these lands, fulfilling the oath that I swore to your father Abraham. I will make your descendants as many as the stars in the sky and give them all these lands. All the nations of the earth will get a blessing for themselves through your descendants. And why? Because Abraham obeyed my summons and kept my charge, my commands, my guidelines, my teachings." So Isaac stayed put in Gerar. The men of the place questioned him about his wife. He said, "She's my sister." He was afraid to say, "She's my wife." He was thinking, these men might kill me to get Rebekah. She's so beautiful. One day after they had been there quite a long time, Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out his window and saw Isaac fondling his wife Rebekah. Abimelech sent for Isaac and said, "So she's your wife. Why didn't you tell us she's my sister?" Isaac said, "Because I thought I might get killed by someone who wanted her." Abimelech said, "But think of what you might have done to us. Given a little more time, one of the men might have slept with your wife, and you would have been responsible for bringing guilt down on us." Then Abimelech gave orders to his people, "Anyone who as much as lays a hand on this man or his wife dies." Isaac planted crops in that land and took in a huge harvest. God blessed them. The man got richer and richer by the day until he was very wealthy. He accumulated flocks and herds and many, many servants, so much so that the Philistines began to envy him. They got back at him by throwing dirt and debris into all the wells that his father's servants had dug back in the days of his father Abraham, clogging up all the wells. Finally, Abimelech told Isaac, "Leave. You become far too big for us." So Isaac left. He camped in the valley of Gerar and settled down there. Isaac dug again the wells which were dug in the days of his father Abraham, but had been clogged by the Philistines after Abraham's death. And he renamed them, using the original names his father had given them. One day, as Isaac's servants were digging in the valley, they came on a well of spring water. The shepherds of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's shepherds, claiming, "This water is ours." So Isaac named the well Esek, meaning quarrel, because they quarreled about it. They dug another well, and there was a difference over that one also, so he named it Sitnah, which means accusation. He went on from there and dug yet another well. But there was no fighting over this one, so he named it Rehoboth, meaning wide open spaces, saying, "Now God has given us plenty of space to spread out in the land." From there he went up to Beersheba. That very night God appeared to him and said, "I am the God of Abraham your father. Don't fear a thing, because I'm with you. I will bless you and make your children flourish because of Abraham my servant." Isaac built an altar there and prayed, calling on God by name. He pitched his tent, and his servants started digging another well. Then Abimelech came to him from Gerar with Ahuzah, his advisor, and Phicol, the head of his troops. Isaac asked him, "Why did you come to me? You hate me. You threw me out of your country." They said, we realize that God is on your side. We'd like to make a deal between us, a covenant that we maintain friendly relations. We haven't bothered you in the past. We treated you kindly and let you leave us in peace. So God's blessing be with you. Isaac laid out a feast, and they ate and drank together. Early in the morning, they exchanged oaths. Then Isaac said goodbye, and they parted as friends. Later that same day, Isaac's servants came to him with news about the well they had been digging. "We've struck water." Isaac named the well Sheba, meaning oath. And that's the name of the city, Beersheba, meaning oath well to this day. When Esau was 40 years old, he married Judith, daughter of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. They turned out to be thorns in the sides of Isaac and Rebekah. The book of Genesis, chapter 27. When Isaac had become an old man and was nearly blind, he called his eldest son Esau and said, "My son." "Yes, father." "I'm an old man," he said. "I might die any day now. Do me a favor. Get your quiver, arrows, and your bow, and go out in the country and hunt me some game. Then fix me a hearty meal, the kind that you know I like, and bring it to me to eat so that I can give you my personal blessing before I die." Rebekah was eavesdropping as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. As soon as Esau had gone off to the country to hunt game for his father, Rebekah spoke to her son Jacob. "I just overheard your father talking with your brother Esau. He said, 'Bring me some game and fix me a hearty meal so that I can eat and bless you with God's blessing before I die.'" Excuse me. "Now, my son, listen to me. Do what I tell you. Go to the flock and get me 2 young goats. Pick the best. I'll prepare them into a hearty meal, the kind that your father loves. Then you'll take it to your father. He'll eat and bless you before he dies." "But mother," Jacob said, "my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I have smooth skin. What happens if my father touches me? He'll think I'm playing games with him. I'll bring down a curse on myself instead of a blessing." "If it comes to that," said his mother, "I'll take the curse on myself. Now just do what I say. Go and get the goats." So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she cooked a hearty meal, the kind his father loved so much. Rebekah took the dress-up clothes of her older son Esau and put them on her younger son Jacob. She took the goat skins and covered his hands and the smooth nape of his neck. Then she placed a hearty meal she had fixed and fresh bread she'd baked into the hand of her son Jacob. He went to his father and said, "My father." "Yes," he said, "which son are you?" Jacob answered his father, "I'm your firstborn son Esau. I did what you told me. Come now, sit up and eat of my game so you can give me your personal blessing." Isaac said, "So soon? How did you get it so quickly?" "Because your God cleared the way for me." Isaac said, "Come close, son. Let me touch you. Are you really my son Esau?" So Jacob moved close to his father Isaac. Isaac felt him and said, "The voice is Jacob's, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He didn't recognize him because his hands were hairy, like his brother's Esau's. But as he was about to bless him, he pressed him. "You're sure you are my son Esau?" "Yes, I am." Isaac said, "Bring me the food so I can eat my son's game and give you my personal blessing." Jacob brought it to him and he ate, and he also brought him wine and he drank. Then Isaac said, "Come close, son, and kiss me." He came close and kissed him, and Isaac smelled the smell of his clothes. Finally, he blessed him. "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of the open country, blessed by God. May God give you of heaven's dew and earth's bounty of grain and wine. May people serve you and nations honor you. You will master your brothers, and your mother's sons will honor you. Those who you curse will be cursed. Those who you bless will be blessed." And then right after Isaac had blessed Jacob and Jacob had left, Esau showed up from the hunt. He had also prepared a hearty meal. He came to his father and said, "Let my father get up and eat his son's game that he may give me his personal blessing." His father Isaac said, "And who are you?" "I'm your son, your firstborn Esau." Isaac started to tremble, shaking violently. He said, "Then who hunted game and brought it to me? I finished the meal just now before you walked in, and I blessed him. He's blessed for good." Esau, hearing his father's words, sobbed violently, most bitterly, and cried to his father, "My father, can't you also bless me?" "Your brother," he said, "came here falsely and took your blessing." Esau said, "Not for nothing was he named Jacob, the heel. Twice now he's tricked me. First he took my birthright, now he's taking my blessing." He begged, "Haven't you kept back any blessing from me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I've made him your master, and all his brothers his servants, and lavished grain and wine on him. I've given it all away. What's left for you, my son? But don't you have just one blessing for me, father?" "Oh, bless me, father, bless me," Esau sobbed inconsolably. Isaac said to him, "You'll live far from earth's bounty, remote from heaven's dew. You'll live by your sword, hand to mouth, and you'll serve your brother. But when you can't take it anymore, you'll break loose and run free." Esau seethed in anger against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He brooded, "The time for mourning for my father's death is close, and then I'll kill my brother Jacob." When these words of her older son Esau were reported to Rebekah, she called her younger son Jacob and said, "Your brother Esau is plotting vengeance against you. He's going to kill you. Son, listen to me. Get out of here. Run for your life to Haran, to your brother Laban. Live with him for a while until your brother cools down, until his anger subsides and he forgets what you did to him. That's not a good mother. I'll then send for you and bring you back. Why should I lose both of you the same day?" Rebekah spoke to Isaac, "I'm sick to death of these Hittite women. If Jacob also marries a native Hittite woman, why live?" Genesis 28. So Isaac called in Jacob and blessed him. Then he ordered him, "Don't take a Canaanite wife. Leave at once. Go to Padan Aram to the family of your mother's father, Bethuel. Get a wife for yourself from the daughters of your uncle Laban. And may the strong God bless you and give you many, many children, a congregation of peoples, and pass on the blessing of Abraham to you and to your descendants, so that you will get this land in which you live. This land God gave Abraham." So Isaac sent Jacob off. He went to Padan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, who was the mother of Jacob and Esau. Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him to Padan Aram to get a wife there. And while blessing him, commanded, "Don't marry a Canaanite woman," and that Jacob had obeyed his parents and gone to Padan Aram. When Esau realized how deeply his father Isaac disliked the Canaanite women, he went to Ishmael and married Mahalath, the sister of Nebaioth, and daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son. This was in addition to the wives he already had. Jacob left Beersheba and went to Haran. He came to a certain place and camped for the night, since the sun had set. He took one of the stones there, set it under his head, and lay down to sleep. And he dreamed. A stairway was set on the ground, and it reached all the way to the sky. Angels of God were going up and going down on it. Then God was right before him, saying, "I am the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. I'm giving the ground on which you are sleeping to you and to your descendants. Your descendants will be as the dust of the earth. They'll stretch from west to east and from north to south. All the families of the earth will bless themselves in you and your descendants. Yes, I'll stay with you. I'll protect you wherever you go, and I'll bring you back to this very ground. I'll stick with you until I've done everything I promised you." Jacob woke from his dream. He said, "God is in this place, truly," and I didn't even know it. He was terrified. He whispered in awe, "Incredible, wonderful, holy. This is God's house. This is the gate of heaven." Jacob was up first thing in the morning. He took the stone he had used for his pillow and stood it up as a memorial pillar and poured oil over it. He christened the place Bethel, meaning God's house. The name of the town had been Luz until then. Jacob vowed a vow. If God stands by me and protects me on this journey on which I'm setting out, keeps me in food and clothing, and brings me back in one piece to my father's house, this God will be my God. This stone that I've set up as a memorial pillar will mark this as a place where God lives. And everything you give me, I'll return a tenth to you. Genesis 29. Jacob set out again on his way to the people of the east. He noticed a well out in an open field with 3 flocks of sheep bedded down around it. This was a common well from which the flocks were watered. The stone over the mouth of the well was huge. When all the flocks were gathered, the shepherds would roll the stone from the well and water the sheep. Then they would return the stone covering the well. Jacob says, "Hello, friends. Where are you from?" They said, "We're from Haran." Jacob asked, "Do you know Laban, son of Nahor?" "We do." "Are things well with him?" Jacob continued. "Very well," they said. "And here is his daughter Rachel coming with the flock. Jacob said, "There's a lot of daylight still left. It isn't time to round up the sheep yet, is it? So why not water the flocks and go back to grazing?" "We can't," they said, "not until all the shepherds get there. It takes all of us to roll the stone from the well. Not until then can we water the flocks." While Jacob was in conversation with them, Rachel came up with her father's sheep. She was the shepherd. The moment Jacob spotted Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, saw her arriving with his uncle Laban's sheep, he went and single-handedly rolled the stone from the mouth of the well and watered the sheep of his uncle Laban. Then he kissed Rachel and broke into tears. He told Rachel that he was related to her father, that he was Rebekah's son. She ran and told her father. When Laban heard the news, Jacob, his sister's son, he ran out to meet him, embraced him and kissed him and brought him home. Jacob told Laban the story of everything that had happened. Laban said, "Your family, my flesh and blood." When Jacob had been with him for a month, Laban said, "Just because you're my nephew, you shouldn't work for me for nothing. Tell me what you want to be paid. What's a fair wage?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. Leah was the older and Rachel the younger. Leah had nice eyes, but Rachel was stunningly beautiful. And it was Rachel that Jacob loved. So Jacob answered, "I'll work for you for 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel." "It is far better," said Laban, "that I give her to you than to marry her to some outsider. Yes, stay here with me." So Jacob worked 7 years for Rachel, but it only seemed like a few days. He loved her so much. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. I've completed what we agreed I'd do. I'm ready to consummate my marriage." Laban invited everyone around and threw a big feast. At evening, though, he got his daughter Leah and brought her to the marriage bed, and Jacob slept with her. Laban gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah as her maid. Morning came. There was Leah in the marriage bed. Jacob confronted Laban. "What have you done to me? Didn't I work all this time for the hand of Rachel? Why did you cheat me?" "We don't do it that way in our country," said Laban. "We don't marry off the younger daughter before the older. Enjoy your week of honeymoon, and then we'll give you the other one also. But it will cost you another 7 years of work." Jacob agreed. When he completed the honeymoon week, Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maid. Jacob then slept with her. And he loved Rachel more than Leah. He worked for Laban another 7 years. When God realized that Leah was unloved, he opened her womb. But Rachel was barren. Leah became pregnant and had a son. She named him Reuben, meaning, "Look, it's a boy." "This is a sign," she said, "that God has seen my misery, and a sign that now my husband will love me." She became pregnant again and had another son. "God heard," she said, "that I was unloved, so he gave me this son also." She named this one Simeon, meaning God heard. She became pregnant yet again, another son. She said, "Now maybe my husband will connect with me. I've given him 3 sons. That's why she named him Levi, meaning connect. She became pregnant a final time and had a 4th son. She said, "This time I'll praise God." So she named him Judah, which means praise God. Then she stopped having children. Genesis chapter 30. When Rachel realized that she wasn't having any children for Jacob, she became jealous of her sister. She told Jacob, "Give me sons or I'll die." Jacob got angry with Rachel and said, "Am I God? Am I the one who refused you babies?" Rachel said, "Here's my maid Bilhah. Sleep with her. Let her substitute for me so I can have a child through her and build a family." So she gave him her maid Bilhah for a wife, and Jacob slept with her. Bilhah became pregnant and gave Jacob a son. Rachel said, "God took my side and vindicated me. He listened to me and gave me a son." She named him Dan, which means vindication. Rachel's maid Bilhah became pregnant again and gave Jacob a second son. Rachel said, "I've been in an all-out fight with my sister and I've won." She named him Naphtali, which means fight. When Leah saw that she wasn't having any more children, she gave her maid Zilpah. This is a mess if I ever was one. She gave her maid Zilpah to Jacob for a wife. Zilpah had a son for Jacob. Leah said, "How fortunate." She named him Gad, which means lucky. When Leah's maid Zilpah had a second son for Jacob, Leah said, "A happy day. The women will congratulate me in my happiness." So she named him Asher, which means happy. One day during the wheat harvest, Reuben found some mandrakes in the field and brought them home to his mother Leah. Rachel asked Leah, "Could I please have some of your son's mandrakes?" Leah said, wasn't it enough that you got my husband away from me? Now you also want my son's mandrakes? Rachel said, all right, I'll let him sleep with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes. When Jacob came home that evening from the fields, Leah was there to meet him. Sleep with me tonight. I've bartered my son's mandrakes for a night with you. So he slept with her that night. God listened to Leah. She became pregnant and gave Jacob a fifth son. She said, God rewarded me for giving my maid to my husband. She named him Issachar, which means bartered. Leah became pregnant yet again and gave Jacob a sixth son, saying, God has given me a great gift. This time my husband will honor me with gifts. I've given him 6 sons. She named him Zebulun, which means honor. Last of all, she had a daughter and named her Dinah. I guess you're not going to tell us what her name means. And then God remembered Rachel. God listened to her and opened her womb. She became pregnant and had a son. She said, God has taken away my humiliation. She named him Joseph, which means add, praying, may God add yet another son to me. After Rachel had had Joseph, Jacob spake to Laban, let me go back home. Give me my wives and children for whom I've served you. You know how hard I've worked for you. Laban said, if you please, I've learned through divine inquiry that God has blessed me because of you. He went on, so name your wages, I'll pay. Jacob replied, you know well what my work has meant to you and how your livestock has flourished under my care. The little you had when I arrived has increased. The little you had when I arrived has increased greatly. Everything I did resulted in blessings for you. Isn't it about time that I do something for my own family? So what should I pay you? Jacob said, you don't have to pay me a thing, but how about this? I'll go back to pasture and care for your flocks. Go through your entire flock today and take out every speckled or spotted sheep, every dark-colored lamb, every spotted and speckled goat. They will be my wages. That way you can check on my honesty when you assess my wages. If you find any goat that's not speckled or spotted or a sheep that's not black, you will know that I stole it. Fair enough, said Laban, it's a deal. But that very day, Laban removed all the mottled and spotted billy goats and all the speckled and spotted nanny goats, every animal that had even a touch of white on it, all the black sheep, and placed them under the care of his sons. Then he put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob. Meanwhile, Jacob went on tending what was left of Laban's flock. But Jacob got fresh branches from poplar, almond, and plane trees and peeled the bark, leaving white stripes on them. He stuck the peeled branches in front of the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink. When the flocks were in heat, they came to drink and made it in front of the streaked branches. Then they gave birth to young that were streaked or spotted or speckled. Jacob placed the ewes before the dark-colored animals of Laban. That way he got distinctive flocks for himself, which he didn't mix with Laban's flocks. And when the sturdier animals were mating, Jacob placed branches at the troughs in view of the animals so that they mated in front of the branches. But he wouldn't set up branches before the feebler animals. That way the feeble animals went to Laban and the sturdy ones to Jacob. The man got richer and richer, acquiring huge flocks, lots and lots of servants, not to mention camels and donkeys. Genesis 31. Jacob learned that Laban's sons were talking behind his back. Jacob has used our father's wealth to make himself rich at our father's expense. At the same time, Jacob noticed that Laban had changed toward him. He wasn't treating him the same. That's when God said to Jacob, go back home where you were born. I'll go with you. I'll go with you. Oh, God said that, I'll go with you. So Jacob sent word for Rachel and Leah to meet him out in the field where his flocks were. He said, I notice that your father has changed towards me. He doesn't treat me the same as before. But the God of my father hasn't changed. He's still with me. You know how hard I've worked for your father. So your father has cheated me over and over, changing my wages time and again. But God never really let him really hurt me. God never let him really hurt me. He said, if I said your wages will consist of speckled animals, the whole flock would start having speckled lambs and kids. And he said, from now on, your wages will be streaked animals. The whole flock would have streaked ones. Over and over, God used your father's livestock to reward me. Once while the flocks were mating, I had a dream and saw the billy goats, all of them streaked, speckled, and mottled, mounting their mates. In the dream, an angel of God called out to me, Jacob. I said, yes. He said, watch closely. Notice that all the goats in the flock that are mating are streaked, speckled, and mottled. I know what Laban's been doing to you. I'm the God of Bethel, where you consecrated a pillar and made a vow to me. Now be on your way, get out of this place, and go home to your birthplace. In the dream, an angel of God called out to me. And the angel said, I am God. I'm the God of Bethel. Verse 14 through 16, interesting. Rachel and Leah said, has he treated us any better? Aren't we treated worse than outsiders? All he wanted was the money he got from selling us, and he spent all that. Any wealth that God has seen fit to return to us from our father is justly ours and our children's. Go ahead, do what God told you. Jacob did it. He put his children and his wives on camels and gathered all his livestock and everything he'd gotten, everything acquired in Padanaram, to go back home to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. Laban was off shearing sheep. Rachel stole her father's household gods, and Jacob had concealed his plan so well that Laban the Aramean had no idea what was going on. He was totally in the dark. Jacob got away with everything he had and was soon across the Euphrates, heading for the hill country of Gilead. 3 days later, Laban got the news. Jacob's run off. Laban rounded up his relatives and chased after him. 7 days later, they caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. That night, God came to Laban the Arabian in a dream and said, "Be careful what you do to Jacob, whether good or bad." When Laban reached him, Jacob's tents were pitched in the Gilead mountains. Laban pitched his tents there too. "What do you mean," said Laban, "by keeping me in the dark and sneaking off, hauling off my daughters off like prisoners of war? Why did you run off like a thief in the night? Why didn't you tell me? Why would I would have sent you off with great celebration, music, timbrels, and flutes. But you wouldn't permit me so much as a kiss from my daughters and grandchildren. It was a stupid thing for you to do. If I had a mind to, I could destroy you right now. But the God of your father spoke to me last night. Be careful what you do to Jacob, whether good or bad. I understand you left because you were homesick, but why did you steal my household gods?" Jacob answered Laban, "I was afraid. I thought you would take your daughters away from me by brute force. But as far as your gods are concerned, if you find that anybody here has them, that person dies. With all of us watching, look around. If you find anything here that belongs to you, take it." Jacob didn't know that Rachel had stolen the gods. Laban went through Jacob's tents, Leah's tents, and the tents of the two maids, but didn't find them. He went from Leah's tent to Rachel's, but Rachel had taken the household gods, put them inside a camel cushion, and was sitting on them. When Laban had gone through the tent, searching high and low without finding a thing, Rachel said to her father, "Don't think I'm being disrespectful, my master, that I can't stand before you, but I'm having my period." So even though he turned the place upside down in the search, he didn't find the household gods. That Rachel was something else. Now it was Jacob's turn to get angry. He lit into Laban. "So what's my crime? What wrong have I done to you that you badger me like this? You ransacked the place. You turned up you turned up a single thing that's yours? Let's see it. Display the evidence. Our two families can be the jury and decide between us. In the 20 years I worked for you, ewes and she-goats never miscarried. I never feasted on the rams of your flock. I never brought you a torn carcass killed by wild animals, but I paid for it out of my own pocket. Actually, you made me pay whether it was my fault or not. I was out in all kinds of weather, from torrid heat to freezing cold, putting in many a sleepless night. For 20 years I've done this. I slaved away 14 years for your two daughters and another 6 years for your flock, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham and the fear of Isaac had not stuck with me, you would have sent me off penniless. But God saw the fix I was in and how hard I'd worked, and last night rendered this verdict." Laban defended himself. "The daughters are my daughters. The children are my children. The flock is my flock. Everything you see is mine. But what can I do about my daughters or for the children they've had? So let's settle this thing between us. Make a covenant. God will be the witness between us." Jacob took a stone and set it up right as a pillar. Jacob called his family round. "Get stones." They gathered stones and heaped them up, then ate there beside the pile of stones. Laban named it in Aramaic Yagur Shahadutha, which means witness monument. Jacob echoed the name in Hebrew, Galid, which means witness monument. Laban said, "This monument of stones will be a witness beginning now between you and me." That's why it is called Galid, witness monument. It's also called Mizpah, watchtower, because Laban said, "God keep watch between you and me when we are out of each other's sight. If you mistreat my daughters or take other wives when there's no one around to see you, God will see you and stand witness between us." Laban continued to Jacob, "This monument of stones and this stone pillar that I've set up is a witness that I won't cross this line to hurt you, and you won't cross this line to hurt me. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their ancestor will keep things straight between us." Jacob promised, swearing by the fear, the God of his father Isaac. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and worship, calling in all his family members to the meal. They ate and slept that night on the mountain. Laban got up early the next morning, kissed his grandchildren and his daughters, blessed them, and then set off for home. Genesis chapter 32. And Jacob went his way. Angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "Oh, God's camp," and he named the place Mahanaim, which means campground. Then Jacob sent messengers on ahead to his brother Esau in the land of Seir in Edom. He instructed them, "Tell my master Esau this, a message from your servant Jacob. I've been staying with Laban and couldn't get away until now. I've acquired cattle and donkey and sheep, also men and women servants. I'm telling you all this, my master, hoping for your approval." The messengers came back to Jacob and said, "We talked to your brother Esau, and he's on his way to meet you, but he has 400 men with him." Jacob was scared, very scared, panicked. He divided his people, sheep, cattle, and camels into two camps. He thought, if Esau comes on the first camp and attacks it, the other camp has a chance to get away. And then Jacob prayed, God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, God who told me, go back to your parents' homeland and I'll treat you well. I don't deserve all the love and loyalty you've shown me. When I left there and crossed the Jordan, I only had the clothes on my back, and now look at me, two camps. Save me, please, from the violence of my brother, my angry brother. I'm afraid he'll come and attack us all, me, the mothers, and the children. You yourself said I would treat you well. I'll make your descendants like the sands of the sea, far too many to count. He slept the night there. Then he prepared a present for his brother Esau from his possessions. 200 female goats, 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 camels with their nursing young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. He put a servant in charge of each herd and said, go ahead of me and keep a healthy space between each herd. Then he instructed the first one out. When my brother Esau comes close and asks, who is your master? Where are you going? Who owns these? Answer him like this, your servant Jacob, they're a gift to my master Esau. He's on his way. He gave the same instructions to the second servant and to the third, to each in turn as they set out with their herds. Say your servant Jacob is on his way behind us. He thought, I will soften him up with a succession of gifts. Then when he sees me face to face, maybe he'll be glad to welcome me. So his gifts went before him while he settled down for the night in the camp. But during the night he got up and took his 2 wives, his 2 maidservants, and his 11 children and crossed the ford of Jabbok. He got them safely across the brook along with all his possessions. But Jacob stayed behind by himself, and a man wrestled with him until daybreak. When the man saw that he couldn't get the best of Jacob as they wrestled, he deliberately threw Jacob's hip out of joint. The man said, let me go, it's daybreak. Jacob said, I'm not letting you go till you bless me. The man said, what is your name? He answered Jacob. The man said, but no longer. Your name is no longer Jacob. From now on, it's Israel, which means God's wrestler. You've wrestled with God and you've come through. Jacob asked, and what's your name? The man said, why do you want to know my name? And then right then and there, he blessed him. Jacob named the place Peniel, which means God's face, because he said, I saw God face to face and lived to tell the story. The sun came up as he left Peniel, limping because of his hip. This is why the Israelites to this day don't eat the hip muscle, because Jacob's hip was thrown out of joint. Genesis chapter 33. Jacob looked up and saw Esau coming with his 400 men. He divided the children between Leah and Rachel and the 2 maidservants. He put the maidservants out in front, Leah and her children next, Rachel and Joseph last. Now, ain't that nothing? He led the way, and as he approached his brother, bowed 7 times, honoring his brother. But Esau ran up and embraced him, held him tight, and kissed him, and they both wept. Then Esau looked around and saw the women and the children. And who are these with you? Jacob said, the children that God saw fit to bless me with. Then the maidservants came up with their children and bowed. Then Leah and her children also bowed. And finally, Joseph and Rachel came up and bowed to Esau. Esau then asked, and what's the meaning of all those herds that I met? I was hoping that they would pave the way for my master to welcome me. Esau said, oh, no, brother. Oh, brother, I have plenty of everything. Keep what is yours for yourself. Jacob said, please, if you can find it in your heart to welcome me, accept these gifts. When I saw your face, it was the face of God, as the face of God smiling on me. Accept the gifts I brought for you. God has been good to me, and I have more than enough. Jacob urged the gifts on him, and Esau accepted. Then Esau said, let's start out on our way. I'll take the lead. But Jacob said, my master can see that the children are frail and the flocks and herds are nursing, making for slow going. If I pushed them too hard, even for a day, I'd lose them all. So, master, go ahead of your servant while I take it easy at the pace of my flocks and children. I'll catch up with you in Seir. Esau said, let me at least send you some men. There's no need, said Jacob. Your generous welcome is all I need or want. So Esau set out that day and made his way back to Seir. And Jacob left for Succoth. He built a shelter for himself and sheds for his livestock. That's how the place came to be called Succoth, which means sheds. And that's how it happened that Jacob arrived all in one piece in Shechem in the land of Canaan, all the way from Padan-aram. He camped near the city. He bought the land where he pitched his tents from the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem. He paid 100 silver coins for it. Then he built an altar there and named it Elohe Israel, which means mighty is the God of Israel. This is the word of the Lord.